Assalamu alaikum, this is Awais and today our topic is subject objective poetry. In previous lecture we have discussed about the syllable and last lecture we have discussed about the subjective poetry, and today we will discuss objective poetry. And subjective poetry we have discussed that the poet goes down into himself and finds inspiration and subject into himself. Now in objective poetry the poet goes down out of himself and finds inspiration and subject in the passion of the word, in the action and the passion of the word. Now looking the definition of the objective poetry. So, what is objective poetry? A poetry in which the poet goes out of himself and finds his inspiration and his subject in the action and the passion of the word. ګوره سبجیکټیو پویټري موږ سره هغه پویټري و چې په هغې کې به چې کوم دی پویټ د خپل ځان باره کې چې کوم دی شاعري کوله، او د ابجیکټیو پویټري موږ سره هغه پویټري چې په دې کې به چې کوم دی یو پویټ یو شاعر د ورډ باره کې د آوټ اف همسیلف به چې کوم دی شاعري کوي. نو ان دس کاینډ اف پویټري د پویټ ډیل ود آوټ سایډ د ورډ. په دې پویټرۍ کې چې کوم دی د پویټ چې کوم ډیل کوي هغه آوټ سایډ ود ا لیټل ریفرنس ټو هز ون فیلینګ هز پرسنل تھاټس اینڈ ایموشن. د خپل پرسنل تھاټس او ایموشن به استعمالوي او شاعري به چې کوم دی آوټ سایډ اف همسیلف کوي. مطلب په خپل ځان به شاعري نه کوي بلکې په ورډ کې چې کوم پیشن دی، ورډس کې چې کوم ایکشن کېږي، ورډس کې چې کوم کنډیشن رواني په هغې به چې کوم دی پویټري کوي. سب ټایپس of this poetry: the ballad, the epic, the meterical romance, the idyll. This is the four types of objective poetry. Now we will discuss the first type of the objective poetry. The name is epic. So what is the definition of the epic? First of all, chimang the epic definition of so an epic is a long narrative poem that is elevated and dignified in theme, tone and style. So epic موږ سره چې کوم دی دا یو لانګ نیریټیو پویم دا موږ سره په 12 بکس باندې مشتملي. that is elevated mean باوقار عزت and dignified in theme, tone and style. So now we will discuss the characteristic of the epic. Epic is a objective poetry, and an epic is a long narrative poem and that is elevated and dignified in theme and tone and style. The characteristic of the epic: so it is long narrative poem divided into 12 book. دا موږ سره long narrative poem او دا موږ سره چې کوم دی په 12 book باندې مشتملي. it deal with the military exploit, national hero etc. دا چې کوم دی deals کوي military exploit سره، national hero سره او some of natural hero سره. The supernatural play is important for supernatural important role play. The epic reflect the life of time reflect. The purpose of the epic is moral mean morality akhlaqiyat. Now the theme of the epic is lofty and sublime. So this is a good point. Now the example of the epic: Homer, the Iliad and the Odyssey are the best example of the epic. These both are consist on 12 book. Now we will discuss the second type of objective poetry. So the second type of objective poetry is ballad. So first of all we have to discuss the definition, and that a ballad is a type of poem that tell us a story. A ballad موږ سره چې کوم دی د یو ټایپ اف پویم دی، کم یو پویم دی، ابجیکټیو پویم دی، او دې کې چې کوم دی دا موږ سره یو سټوري راکوي، یو شارټ سټوري راکوي. د دې موږ سره کریکټرسټکس څه دي؟ A ballad often abruptly without introduction. ballad چې کوم دی دا موږ سره چې کوم دی ډایرکټ abruptly mean suddenly without any introduction. without introduction چې کوم دی دا often کېږي. there are so many different types of ballad. دلته چې کوم دی موږ سره ډېر types of ballad دي that gave us one strict definition. who gave us one strict definition: a song or poem that tell a story. So simple definition of ballad: that a poem or song that tell a story, a short story, which gave us a ballad. By ballad many ballad have refrain. So ballad کې چې کوم دی موږ سره refrain refrain څه ته وایي؟ refrain is a line that repeat throughout the poem. refrain موږ سره هغه لاین دی چې هغه موږ سره throughout the poem چې کوم دی repeat کېږي. هغه لاین چې هغه موږ سره په یو پویم کې بار بار ریپیټ کېږي نو هغې ته موږ refrain وایو. the best example is the rhyme of ancient mariner or the best example of the ballad. Now we will going toward the Meterical Romance. Meterical Romance is the important types of the objective poetry, and it gave us pleasant and while reading the Ballad, the Meterical Romance, it gave us pleasant to our heart. The type of narrative poem, it is the type of narrative poem which typically center on country love, knights, and the Charwalic. Now, the example of the Meterical Romance is Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight are the best example of the Meterical Romance, and the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is a Meterical Romance written in the late 14th century. It is written in 14th century, and this is very important poem, which is the type of objective poetry, and it gave very pleasant to our heart. And now the last one is the Idyll. The Idyll is the poem, the types of subjective poetry, objective poetry, and in this poetry we will the poem that idealize the rural peasant. Poem that idealize the rural peasant mean rural dehati alaka manchikama poetry kiki no agita manchikam the Idyll vayu. For example, looking the example Alfred Lord Tennyson's Alfred Lord Tennyson's epic poem Idyll, the Idyll of the King, were particularly popular during the Romantic period. So this is the best example of Idyll, which were famous and popular during the Romantic period. So a poem that idealized the rural peasant, the poem that idealized of rural peasant, for example, Alfred Lord Tennyson's epic